This is another WrestleMania video. Wrestlers who downgraded their career. I'm super interested to see who's in this because um EC3 was in the thumbnail for this. And he definitely downgraded his career. I'm gonna be honest with you. He might have gotten a bigger paycheck, but he definitely downgraded his career.
10 wrestlers who downgraded their careers in a new promotion. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Number
Facebook.
10, Lance Storm.
Lance
Storm is
Storm.
often
Yeah.
credited as the man who kicked off the Invasion storyline, and it's a true testament to Storm's star power at the time that he delivered the first strike in what would be one of the biggest storylines WWE have ever delivered. During Storm's WCW run between 2000 to 2001, he emerged as a breakout star for the promotion, as his heel work was tremendous and his in-ring work was way ahead of its time.
He did all right in TNA, didn't he? I feel like he did fine in TNA, but yeah, this is definitely like nobody thinks of Lance Storm when they think of WWE.
Storm had all the tools to be a main event attraction for the company, and he was without a doubt someone the company should have put some stock behind during the final few months of the promotion's existence. When Storm was brought into WWE in 2001, he had a great first few months in the promotion, as his run in the mid-card and his matches against the likes of Edge were actually excellent. However, it was only a matter of time before Vince McMahon took exception to Storm's lack of charisma, and Storm was then relegated to solely being in tag teams. By the year 2003, Storm was nothing more than an enhancement talent for the company, and WWE would even actively mock Storm live on air, as Stone Cold Steve Austin would fall asleep during his matches. Number 9, Mike Awesome.
Yeah, Mike Awesome. Bro, Mike Awesome. Mike Awesome is awesome. Like, if you've never watched Mike Awesome, you need to go back and watch some ECW, bro. Mike Awesome's that dude. Like, he's that dude. It is a shame that he never really made it past ECW.
ECW World Champion Mike Awesome. WCW had a great opportunity to freshen up their main event picture, and Awesome had every tool to deliver in this role. Awesome had a fantastic look, and more importantly, he was going to be able to have stellar matches, which was something that the core WCW audience was crying out for at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of pushing Awesome to the moon, WCW Creative decided to give Awesome 2 gimmicks, and
Is that
both were
R-Truth?
abysmal and insulting. One of his gimmicks was known as that 70s guy.
Oh, that's
made Awesome
awful.
Act like he was from the 70s, like literally. This was
That's
generic
awful.
and bland and had zero substance. Awesome's more infamous gimmick was known as the Fat Chick Thriller, and this involved
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. I think I saw that on Twitter the other day, but yeah, I forgot that was him. What a crazy time that was just something that was okay. Like, they put that on TV and people were like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. Oh, yeah, that's a good character right there.
Awesome attempted to sleep with overweight women. This came at a time where every wrestler in the company had to have a nonsensical gimmick, and assigning Awesome gimmicks of this nature was the exact reason as to why his WCW run completely flopped. Number 8, Raven. Raven was one of the more interesting characters in the 90s.
So sad.
He managed to get over both in WCW and ECW, and it was mainly down to the fact that Raven's gimmick had a ton of depth, and the motivations of the character were always fascinating. Although Raven was a big name in each of these promotions, when he returned to WWE in 2000, everything seemed to fall apart. Raven would make his debut at the Unforgiven pay-per-view, and unfortunately, this was the only time in which Raven was presented as a big deal in the company.
I feel like one of the things that really stunted Raven was that they didn't take the hardcore title very seriously. Which, I mean, they at that point, they were like, it was almost a 24/7 championship, right? And so Raven could have taken the hardcore championship and made it something serious, but it might have been too far gone at that point. But that is sad that Raven couldn't get over in the WWE, because I remember watching Raven. I've seen every episode of Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, and I liked Raven. I liked Raven a lot. But yeah, it does suck that he couldn't make it in the WWE.
He was mainly used in the hardcore division, and although he did his best in this role, he was capable of so much more.
Yeah, because
According to
WWE
Raven in a
put
shoot
zero
interview, he knew
emphasis
he
on
wasn't gonna be
hardcore.
booked right the moment he found out that Vince McMahon questioned why he'd been rehired. Michael Hayes was in a booking meeting when Vince McMahon said, "Who the F hired Johnny Polo?"
Oh,
My heart
I
was
forgot
broken
he's
when I
also Johnny
realized it wasn't going
Polo.
to be used right. Number 7, EC3.
Yeah.
EC3 became a huge deal when he signed for TNA. He had a unique gimmick, and as his run went on, he seemed to just get better and better as a performer. It was only a matter of time before WWE came calling, and when it was reported that EC3 had signed for WWE and he was going to be able to keep his EC3 name and gimmick, fans were more than excited. EC3 would have a brief run in NXT, but it was declared that he was main roster ready within a few short months. This run on the main roster was unbelievably bad, and it took just a few matches for WWE to lose complete faith in the former TNA World Champion. Former WWE Chairman
This is one of those instances where everybody wants to be a WWE guy, but not everybody's going to be a WWE guy or should be a WWE guy. And I think EC3 is one of those guys that he could have been wildly successful if he stayed with TNA, right? But WWE came calling, and to WWE he went. I think there are wrestlers like on AEW's roster who are better suited for AEW than they are WWE. They'll come to WWE and they won't be able to get over like they have in AEW. And it'll be a detriment to their career. And there's guys in WWE that if they were to go to AEW might be a big thing for a couple months. And then after that, they're just going to be stuck in catering, stuck at home, doing indie shows, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're truly good at where you are, until it gets bad, you might want to just stay.
Vince McMahon took issue with the fact that during a match that EC3 had against Dean Ambrose, Ambrose was the one being cheered. All the blame bizarrely fell on EC3, and he would subsequently be removed from WWE programming. They had such a great opportunity with the EC3 character, yet the stubbornness of Vince McMahon massively hindered his success. Number 6, the Sandman. It was a smart call for WWE to bring the Sandman in for an EC.
This is exactly what I was talking about earlier. Sandman was amazing in ECW, right? Sandman was cookie cutter ECW, which there's nothing wrong with being cookie cutter ECW because that's being unique in the wrestling world. But the way Sandman carried himself and wrestled, he could not make it in the WWE. Vince McMahon had way too many restrictions to allow someone like Sandman to truly be himself and be who the fans know him as.
ECW relaunch in 2006. The Sandman was a household name for the ECW brand, and it would have been odd to have an ECW product without the Sandman attached to it. It was evident early on in that WWE had no idea how to present him outside of a brief cameo, and in 2007 they made the bold call to draft the Sandman to Raw. Moving the Sandman to a non-ECW show made zero sense, as it was going to expose the character, and that's exactly what happened. Ultimately, the Sandman's WWE run was a complete waste of time, and he was presented as more of a novelty act than a character that fans should actually care about.
Like, there are guys in ECW that made it out of ECW and were fine. Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, two easy examples. But then there are guys like Sandman, guys like Tommy Dreamer, who being an ECW guy was part of their character, and now that that's gone, they have to replace it with something, and WWE doesn't have an equivalent. Like, they can have their own ECW program, but it's not the same ECW. It's not at all. And so that's where Sandman and Tommy Dreamer fall, and a handful of other guys that were really, really big in ECW.
Number 5, DDP.
DDP.
In 2001, DDP was one of the most popular wrestlers in the world that wasn't signed to WWE. Therefore, when it was reported that he would be coming to the WWE following the WCW buyout, there were high hopes. WWE had a backwards creative idea for him.
I remember this, yeah.
A stalker. DDP would stalk The Undertaker's real-life wife, and this was a character trait that made zero sense. He would explain that he wanted to make an impact, yet this more sinister side of him was never present during his main event run in WCW. Fans instantly rejected the character,
this was weird.
Rightly so. DDP's subsequent matches with The Undertaker were met with lukewarm reviews, and WWE were even accused of outright burying DDP in the feud, as they had him lose to The Undertaker's wife on Raw. When the feud came to an end, they were completely over DDP as a legitimate character, so much so that they
There's like sometimes things work and you don't need to change anything. And I hate that about the WWE is like people like DDP. DDP could have had a long and awesome career with the WWE, but they were so afraid of using something from another company that they couldn't let him have it. Like it's so dumb. Like he was so over with WCW, and to bring him in and make him do something stupid like stalk the Undertaker's wife. Like what are we doing?
placed him in the lower mid-card, competing for the European title. DDP's WWE run was filled with what-ifs, and we never know what his career would have been like if they just presented him like the star he was. DDP would reflect on the disastrous WWE run during an interview with Sportskeeda, and he believes that being a mark for Vince McMahon was a huge detriment to him. I think one of the biggest things hurting me going into the WWE, I was too much of a mark for Vince. As a kid growing up, I freaking thought Vince McMahon was what he is. He is the Grand Poobah. I respected him so much walking in there, probably too much. Vince Russo will tell you this, you gotta be able to fight your way in there. And I was happy to be there. I just wanted to be there because I loved that since I was a kid, since it was the WWF. I watched Vince interview Andre on Apple Carts, and Vince, who is 6'2", looks like a midget next to Andre the Giant. And I loved the guy. I understood it was business. Number 4, Andrade.
Oh,
There's
Andrade.
usually an expectation that when a wrestler goes from WWE to AEW, the AEW will present them significantly better. Fans definitely had this expectation when it came to Andrade, yet his AEW run was frustrating to watch.
Yeah, it was bad. His AEW run was bad. I really just hope they would just let him go to like CMLL and finish out his contract over there. But yeah, his AEW run was piss poor. And I'm a huge fan of Andrade. It actually made me sad to watch his AEW run.
AEW struggled with how to book him, and this was seen by countless managers he would have during his time in the promotion. Whenever Andrade would be booked to wrestle, he would have great matches, yet he would struggle to have meaningful storylines in the company, and fans would often forget that he was even signed. Towards the end of his run, Andrade would even begin to like tweets criticizing the company, and this was a sign that his run needed to come to an end. Andrade would end up departing the company and would embark on a WWE return in early 2024.
And he's done fantastic
Number
so
3,
far.
John Morrison.
I think
Sometimes in pro wrestling,
I think Andrade's due for a strap. Like he'll be belted up here pretty soon. That US championship division is honestly kind of good. And I believe we're gonna be seeing a lot out of it here pretty soon. So buckle up. Andrade could be a champion here soon and make me very happy.
particularly when it comes to major promotions such as WWE, it's obvious that a run isn't going to live up to expectations. John Morrison was expected to return to TV in early 2020, and fans hoped that Morrison would make a surprise return in the annual Royal Rumble match. However, WWE had different ideas, as they had Morrison return in an awkward backstage segment on Smackdown. WWE would then reform the Miz and Morrison pairing, and whilst his
I actually really like the Miz and Morrison.
Morrison was a main eventer in TNA and Lucha Underground, and he could have easily been a great addition to the upper echelon of WWE. The most infuriating thing about his final WWE run from Morrison is that he was often presented as the Miz's sidekick. Whilst the comedy was fine and his body of in-ring work was great, he was never presented as a true threat. And it didn't exactly come as a massive surprise when they would release the talented star in 2021. Number 2, Vader.
That's so sad because Morrison was one of my favorites to play as on all the games. And I think he's got one of the highest ceilings out of any of these wrestlers that was on this list. He could have been like a top guy, like someone we remember forever. And I'll remember him forever, that's for sure. But average WWE fan may not remember him in 10 years. But Vader, they should remember.
Vader was a perfect signing for WWE in the mid-90s, as he was the exact star they needed to reignite the main event scene. Vader had an incredible look, and he was a fantastic storyteller in the ring, and it seemed like a given that he'd be able to have unbelievable matches against the top names in the company such as Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, and The Undertaker. However, this run went off the rails when backstage politics played a role in Vader losing his place on the card, and he would spend the majority of his days as a lower card talent. It was previously common practice for backstage politics and influence to ruin a wrestler's run in the company.
Yeah,
His backstage heat
I've heard that.
surfaced after he messed up a spot during his SummerSlam match with Shawn Michaels, and with HBK being the way he was in '96, WWE were going to listen to every grievance he had to say. And number 1, Bret Hart.
The crazy thing is Vader was wildly successful everywhere else. He would have been a massive success with the WWE if backstage politics wouldn't have gotten involved, which is so stupid. Backstage politics are the dumbest things, and I'm glad it's not as prevalent as it used to be. I'm sure there's still backstage politicking, right? I'm sure the top guys get what they want, but it feels like every story I hear from the 90s is, oh, he politicked his way, he did this, or he went and talked to this person, and then everything changed. And I'm so glad that's not the case anymore.
Hart. But WWE suffered a monumental
Bret Hart is
blow
weird.
in late '97 when Bret Hart left in favor of WCW. Hart was offered a contract that was too good to ignore, and after they delivered the infamous Montreal Screwjob, WWE and Hart's relationship was completely shattered. Hart was such a big name, and it was kind of unusual that for the first few months of his run, WCW really struggled in how to present him. As things went on, Hart looked increasingly frustrated as he was never a wrestler to shy away from his true feelings. Just ask Bill Goldberg. Hart did
yeah,
great matches
yeah.
during his WCW run, yet he
Okay, so this is about his WCW run. Because, like, his WWE run, like, how could you say that that was bad or that he downgraded? His WWE run was incredible. I feel like his WCW run wasn't that bad, but it did end poorly. Right? I think his WCW run was fine. I think it was good. It worked for him until it didn't, which is unfortunate.
could have done so much more. In late '99, Hart would end up having a match with Goldberg that resulted in the end of his career. Hart still had years upon years left of active competition.
Yeah, he definitely
and
did.
one stiff kick took that all away from him. Even though Hart often criticizes Goldberg for the botch kick ending his career, he's always been critical of the way WCW booked him, and this is what he had to say during an interview with the Broken Skull Sessions. There was so much talent I could have worked with. Booker T, Hulk Hogan. I should have worked with Hogan right away. I should have had a Hulk Hogan in a sharpshooter and done some big numbers with him. I went into WCW, I had more heat. I'd wrestled you at WrestleMania 13, I beat Undertaker at SummerSlam, I knocked Vince McMahon out, I didn't really lose to Shawn Michaels. I had so much heat, I just didn't know what the hell to do with me.
Yeah, that's that is
is
insane to think about. Is like, he had crazy heat. And if WCW doesn't do anything with that, they have a whole Monday Night War, and they're not using one of WWE's top guys or former top guys that just left the company in a huge drama unfolding way. Like, whoa, what are we doing?
WCW themselves had to say regarding Hart and his dreadful run in the company. Former WCW president Eric Bischoff had this to say on his podcast. No reflection on him, but Bret Hart, I mean, nothing good came out of it. Not for him, not for us, not for the fans. Everybody lost. But there you have it, folks. 10 wrestlers who downgraded their careers in a new promotion. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with...
Yeah, I tend to agree with all these, because I mean, metrically you can say, yeah, that these are true. It is a shame about Vader and John Morrison. That's the ones I'm disappointed about. Because if you go to Japan and talk about Vader, they view him as like Godzilla himself. Like, he was booked to be something that the average Japanese person should fear. He beat Antonio Inoki, like, after Antonio Inoki had a long running undefeated streak. And he didn't just beat him. He kicked his tail. Like, he destroyed him. So that's just, it's insane. Insane. But yeah, that was good video. It'll be linked down below. Go ahead and give it a like. Sub to WrestleMania if you haven't already. And if you're watching this video, go leave them a comment. Say that you came from mine. That would be awesome.